lovely morning and a warm welcome to the program. Kule Abiyo is my name. The International Monetary Fund (IMF), founded in 1944, provides financial assistance to member countries facing balance of payment problems. Nigeria, like many developing nations, turns to the IMF during periods of economic strain, often due to falling oil prices, currency devaluation, and external debt crisis. Over the decades, Nigeria has received multiple tranches of IMF support, particularly during the 1980s and early 2000s, when the nation faced severe credit instability. The most recent significant IMF loan came during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when Nigeria secured $3.4 billion under the rapid financing instrument to cushion the effect of the global economic downturn. While this emergency fund was crucial at the time, its full payment now represents a major fiscal turning point. So this one, taking a look at Nigeria's payment of that IMF loan, which I've also said tongue wagging. My case is ready here. We'll take a break now. When we come back with the grant on it, please to stay with us. Welcome back. We're so glad that you still have you with us, and I have my guest today to do justice to the topic. I have Pastor Akitunde Omomofe, a chartered accountant and also a public financial management consultant. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Today we're taking a look at that $3.5 billion payment as IMF loan by Nigeria. When you heard the news, what was your reaction?
Yes, we have to give it to government for doing the right thing. When you borrow, you must go with some level of credibility of mind to pay back. We do know some nations go out there to borrow with the mind that at some point they will ask for refinancing, on and on and on like that. And I know this discussion was, on before President Buhari left office, and even when the new president came. Some people started canvassing because the rapid response facility wasn't just in Nigeria alone. At that time, it was a global issue, right? So for middle income nations like Nigeria, poor income level nations, everyone went to IMF to ask for that money. So some, after COVID had left us, I should say, began to canvass for the fact that, look, to help Africa, particularly on a sustainable basis, that those debts are to be forgiven. Some were also asking for refinancing. But for this government, I think from the very day one, they meant what they have done. To say, look, we want to be credible as a nation. We want to return Nigeria to the path of sustainability and fiscal prudence. And so they insisted that the right thing to do was to pay, not just IMF, because if they have followed the pattern of what CBN have done, is that they have continued to honor their obligations.
When you take a look at the quantum of money involved, when you take a look at the fact that Nigeria is also broke, where exactly would you say the government was able to also most of these finances?
That's the thing about when you borrow. When you borrow, you must have it in mind that you will pay back. And at the point that you are trying to pay, every time you borrow, you are more or less eating into your future. So that Nigeria was driven to that point that we were servicing our debt using about 97% of our revenue. So it became very, very stringent and tight for the nation. And so what they have done is to now, by committing to repaying those loans, reduce from 97% to about 50% now, right? But like you said, some sectors will have suffered from it because monies that should have been made available for development of projects are now being used to service them. But it is first line charge, if I use that word. If you borrow, particularly at the international level, there are legal conditions and stringent conditions that have been attached that surely will make it so that we have to pay.
So how do we raise the money to pay?
So it's not about how we raise money. We have continued to pay from the revenue we have been receiving. What has happened that has led to the reduction is that the rate at which we were borrowing pre-2023 compared to the rate at which we are borrowing now has reduced. So what that means is that you have leeway, you are not like borrowing and paying and borrowing and paying. So not like they have not borrowed, they have borrowed, but the rate at which we were borrowing before 2023 and now, if you have to compare, have reduced. So from the revenue available to government, they are able to pay. Mind you, there have been also increase in revenue. If you take two elements, if you take the first element, which is oil proceeds, at the time President Buhari was leaving office, we were down to about 900,000 barrels per day. But there have been upsurge in terms of production between that time and now. The government is oscillating between 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, and there is the desire to take it to 2.5 as the president has mandated the new leadership and board of NFPC. So you see now there is extra revenue between 2023 and now because of increase in oil production. So that in itself gives more ability to pay. The last time I was there, we discussed crude for Naira. So again, if you imagine that has been run for more than 6 months now, which meant that you have freed up forex for the purpose of meeting all your obligations, all your forex obligations, including paying foreign debts and foreign obligations. So those are the kind of things you have to look at that enable this government to be able to pay. The second element, major element within our revenue profile, is that the FRS had also been performing well over and above revenue targets.
Okay.
Pre-2023, the highest that we were able to do at FRS, that's domestic revenue, was just around 4.3. 4.3 trillion, but you see what FRS have done, you see what custom is doing, you see what, there could be some argument that look, because you have increased as a result of devaluation, some of those things, the figures are up, and so, but the fact of the matter is that efficiency has returned to those agencies, technology has been improved upon and strengthened to administer collection of revenue, and that in itself has helped to block several leakages and loopholes. And you just have to give it to this government for that.
Government is also talking about the subsidy removal. We also agree to that. The government has also subsidy removal also for government.
So we are able. You are on point on that because we are also able to conserve a lot of forex that ordinarily will have been paid to faceless subsidy importers in the name of subsidy. That we never, as a country, are able to track by any metrics. I mean, it is so defining, we have to say. There are consequences that we are bearing now because every decision has got outcomes, positive or negative. So, but the fact of the matter is that such amount of money before now were just being paid to business owners that we do not know and that are not contributing to the development of Nigeria. So it's good to have that portion, right, of forex that should have gone to those people now being brought back into the system.
You see government officials that have actually celebrated $3.4 billion payment of this IMF loan, but yet Nigeria is still owing an IMF.
Yeah, so when we say we are owing, it will mean that the interest elements that needs to be paid over a period of time has to still be paid. And which is just, I say just because if you compare what you have paid in terms of principal repayment to what interest component is small, so you have to pay the average of between $30 and $32 million per year. And so that's fair enough. I believe government is able to also deal with that. And what that brings to government is that you still have what we call the fact that you are able to continue to meet that obligation, then you can then draw your special drawing rights. What this means is that you can go back again and say, give me some money, give me additional money, give me additional money. So once they look at your SDR and they see that yes, your credit rating is up there, then they honor your request again.
So what implication would you say this will also have on Nigeria's economy generally?
So there are many things to look at. Let's start from credibility to start with. That you can pay, right, or that you have been able to pay makes you a credible nation, right? So other, development partners, other creditors are looking at you and they said, you are able to pay on time. Don't forget this money was just taken to interest. So that Nigeria is able to pay or was able to pay on time means a lot in terms of credibility. And so you can go back and borrow if you want to, because you paid before, they know that then you can pay. Okay, that's on the first level. Then that also has multiplier effect on FDIs, because your foreign investors, are looking at you that then we can do business with you because we look credible. We can do business with you because you are meeting your obligations. So in terms of FDI, the government can canvass for more FDIs on that alone. Then come to the idea of forex volatility. You notice of late that government have continued to defend the position of Naira. If you have nothing in your foreign your reserve, then there is nothing to use to defend Naira. So that portion has been freed out. They are no longer paying monthly to IMF, right? That portion that has been freed out is now added to your reserve, and with that you have adequate liquidity to defend Naira. Then let's look at liquidity also in terms of government having more money to work. That portion is no longer being paid every month, so we have more revenue internally to work, which gives you good fiscal position. You have more money to do other development activities. So quite a number of things to talk about.
When we started that, with the fact that this will also give us an opportunity to also borrow more money. Can't you do without also borrowing?
So there are different school of thoughts around this borrowing, right? You ask yourself, what are you borrowing for? So if you are borrowing for infrastructure, that would be a national priority. If you are borrowing to go into ventures that will further generate revenue, that's another priority, a national priority, fiscal priority that must be taken. If you are borrowing for consumption, as some will put it, and again, it's something, a national priority that the nation, we have to also give it. But to imagine that you will run the nation with all of the financing gap that we have across all the sectors, and with the challenge of low revenue base, it may be difficult not to borrow. Mind you, there is even an imminent danger that is ahead. Our budget, for example, has was breaking around $75. But you see that Mr. Trump came in January and he insisted that OPEC should do something around pricing, that Americans can be paying that much, for oil, and the market has responded. Right? And you have seen that the price of oil has continued to go down. That in itself has put that budget on a very, very big scale of risk. And it has great effects.
So you must also continue to finance the budget.
So for you to finance the budget, you have to go and borrow. It's as simple as that. Look, financing the budget is critical to reflating the economy. Because if your budget is not active, you see, then the problem that we are in becomes even more precarious. Because you need to reflate, get the economy back, by making sure that your public expenditure addresses what the people want, what can bring money to the pocket of the people. And so if your budget is inactive, your people are simply in hunger. That's the implication. That's how to put it in simple ways, right? So in public finance, you are looking at the public expenditure pattern that addresses inflation. You are looking at the public expenditure pattern that addresses unemployment. You are looking at a public expenditure pattern that puts money in the pocket of people, right? So just imagine if that budget is now not working. So how do you create the jobs? If factories are closing down, how do you create the jobs? If factories are not working, how do you create the jobs? When the demand is higher than supply, inflation will go up. So all of those issues are usually very important for every good government. You just want to see that your budget really is at.
So as a professional, if a government is also going to borrow, what sectors of the law one government to actually?
I'm not canvassing for borrowing here, but I'm saying we might have found ourselves in a situation where we need to borrow.
That is so obvious.
So, because you could also look at other ways to get revenue. People have also argued, I've also believed that, look, number one, before we begin to look at borrowing, because that's not really my position. My position is just that you have to fund it somehow. This is your revenue, this is your expenditure. You just have to find a way to fund your expenditure. That's the point I'm making. So you can look at oil production. And that's why for industry watchers or many Kayani, also leave office approval, because in government the metrics are there, and you've got to make sure as the chief executive that your appointees work based on the indicators and the metrics that you have given to them, the key performance indicators. Give me $2 million per barrel, upon which even the budget was based, right? Or 2.2 or 2.5, but you are not even moving beyond 1.7. See, from what the presidency said, he said, the people that were removed have also now become part of the problem in that sector. So now the new people have come in and they are saying, give us 2.5. So that could be a way of shoring up your revenue. So it doesn't necessarily have to be by borrowing. You imagine extra 500,000 barrels per day, what that means. Even at $50, at $60, at $70, the fact that you're able to also wants the production. Their pet production will be increased. Whatever they pet, they have added extra buffer to it, right? Because at that price going down, is affecting a lot of national budgets, not just Nigeria. Because every country, they are looking at what you have to take care of what you do not have. So you need actually to get your production up, to get more money for your country.
This repayment has also been celebrated so well.
It has to be celebrated.
So how will the American on this benefit from this?
Okay, so there are, we mentioned the other time that we have freed up more funds for the country. And you can defend Naira. Let's take it from the point of foreign forex. The more we are able to keep this foreign exchange down, the better for us.
Is it going down?
It has been difficult. The reason why it has been difficult is that oil price globally are continuing to go down. So if it goes down beyond 60, if it gets to 50, I can tell you by estimate that $1 to Naira will go to 1.7. So it's a risk. So government knows that it's a risk. If it goes down to 60 to 50, because you won't be able to defend that as you are doing currently. So it may likely go to 1.7.
For petrol consumption.
The ordinary man on the street, the fuel of the price at your force is going down. So they're happy, it's take and give. But government is not able to fund this activity. So we just have to choose one.
So for people at home, ordinary person, ordinary Nigerian.
Every time the dollar, of oil price, a reduction of $1 in oil price is achieved, it should have effect at the pump price. And that for us will be good for an ordinary man on the street, but it's give and take. They give you there, they take it somewhere.
I'm also looking at we have also celebrated this repayment of loan, and the ordinary man will also ask you, what do I understand by this?
Yes, there are so many things around this. We have to say celebrating it is good because you see, when you have more fun, then you are able to do many things. Doing many things then mean that you are able to attend to the needs of the people. That's naturally the flow. All things being equal, that's naturally the flow. So that you are not tied to the neck or the pocket of a creditor is good. It gives some level of freedom. Let me tell you something with IMF. When they give you anything, there are stringent conditions that are usually attached to it. You imagine that when you are let off now, you are not under those belts. You are not under any of those stringent conditions. They don't then have powers.
How many stringent conditions?
So every loan has come with certain conditions. I give an example. Not necessarily about IMF now. When the other nations were returning their partial loot, which are the last two sets of loot that was returned to the country, they were clear on how that money should be spent. I'm sure you know part of the conditions was that don't take it into the budget, right? Don't put it back into the treasury. They insisted that that money must be used for condition cash grant, the $500,000. They insisted. If you do an opinion poll among professionals or with the people? Or if I ask the media, if we do a poll with the media, would you have loved that that money was being distributed in the manner? But for the people returning the money, said, no, that's the way we want it to be. So you see now, you are left basically the because you have to spend the rest there, they want it to be spent. So in the same manner, every time they go for any of these IMF loan, there are legal conditions usually attached to it. Some may not be in the public for you and I to know most times because you really don't find opportunity to see the details, the legal covenants around those. So you are free. That's the bottom line. Now that you are paid there, you are free from those legal conditions. Then you can then do whatever you want to do. Make no mistakes about it that when you go there to borrow also, they kind of steer the way your fiscal policies are run, the way your monetary policies sometimes, even though that's a no-go area, but sometimes the way your monetary policies are designed and structured, they have some of those things all laid down in the conditions.
And an expert has just said that the government savings from reduced debt servicing can now be invested in power generation, railways, smart agricultural and digital infrastructure.
That's an idea. For me, even in this country, number one priority area, infrastructure is always there. Number one priority area for every government in Nigeria today should be agriculture. Biggest challenge an average man is facing on a daily basis is your food. And you ask yourself how much do we have in terms of food production for our people. I give an example of a sub-national that is very close to us, Ekiti State. You see that they were able to bring down, that state was able to bring down inflation rate in that state well above 10%. What happened? There was an investment, strong investment in agriculture. And it's simple to define, it's simple to know.
Is that investment also feasible?
It's feasible, and that's the point we are saying, that all sub-nationals at this point must invest in agri. It's simple. Our inflation at this time, you could pick out or segregate the elements that is responsible for it. Why do we have this much inflation? It's not just because prices of goods are high. Why are prices of goods high? The cost of food. The cost of food is high. That's essentially what is driving most other sectors in our country. So, and it's easy to know that we are not producing enough. You could see it around. So if you put in a lot of money, before the government had restricted itself to policy making when it comes to agriculture, and they have said, let it be dealt with by the private sector. We are saying the government needs to move in now massively and deal with agriculture. Get people, smallholder farmers, to go into commercial agriculture, because go around the states. Go around the states.
But the fear of investment is also there.
So now we fix security just so that agri production and food security can be high. So the two go together, unfortunately, at our time, right? The two go together, unfortunately. So if you fix the cost of the priority you want to put on agri, you can then make
security. So because of our time, moving forward, now, how do we address debt servicing?
So now we expect that addressing it is simply, are you borrowing more? If you borrow more, you got to honor it.